Okay, so on this project, we've gone pretty far in it. There's still, of course, more that we can add to it, and there's some more that we're still going to add to it. And I'm going to make a couple of notes here in the index.js file, because the got a few goals for today. We're going to say get to MVP, and look over the app, config XML, developer certificate, and then app stores. These are the goals for the day. We mentioned briefly that first one, get to MVP. What was that about? What was the acronym and about that when we talked about it last time?
Minimum viable product?
Minimum viable product. Yes, minimum viable product. So, minimum viable product, which is ready for the world. And we'll put ready in quotes, because we're never ready. We're always improving it. We're always adding to it. But a lot of apps are released that they're like 90% there, 95%, 75%, I don't know. A lot of apps are released at a certain point. Oops, someone got the cursed one. Sorry about that. So let's give you a different one. And I haven't learned Chinese yet, so I don't know what the menu says. I didn't turn it on. So minimum viable product is that our app is finished enough that we can start to publish it or have other people test it. We've been the only ones really working on the project so far. So we will get to that today. We've got an app that does a lot. It has a login system. It has several user accounts. It has the ability to save data, retrieve, edit. You know, in my case, I'm not loving the colors, but I can fix that, and you'll fix that. And I've got fonts and graphics, and this, you know, there's still more that we can do. There's still more that, what about like tapping into GPS and displaying a cool map and all of that? But is that necessary for this app? You might think, yeah, I've got to have all of the pieces of my project working before I release it to the world. Yeah, you could. That's a viable strategy as well. Or you could release a version that has a lot of the features, and then as you add more to the app, release a version 2, or version 2.5, or version 3, or whatever. And nowadays, it's not really that like apps are ever finished. There's always updates, even to the point about adding brand new features that version 1 didn't really have. So I believe that we are at a point where we'll be able to do this today, get to the minimum aspect of it, which then means we need to look over the app, we need to browse the various folders and files of the app. So another way to say it is give the app a once-over. Maybe that's too much slang, but once-over. A once-over, you're going to look at it, you're going to look through it again, you're going to look, you're going to run your own app and kind of test it. Still, at this stage, we're going to look at the various folders. Are there any like extraneous files? Maybe I was thinking of putting these 7 fonts into the project, but I ended up staying with 2. I might want to remove things that are extraneous because they'll be part of the app. They'll make your app larger. Maybe there's code in my JS file or HTML file that I commented out and never really used again. Maybe there's like to-do items in there. So it's a look over the app. It's look it over, give the app a once over. You know, you go through it once again. We have to do stuff in the config XML file. Make sure all screens there are quote correct. We'll talk about what correct is when we look at that. But that's one of the files that you kind of look at like a couple of times throughout the development, at the beginning of the project when you first set it up, and then at the end when you're about to release it, just to confirm, does it still have relevant information in there because there's like version numbers and developer names and other stuff. And maybe we were playing with, 7 different plugins and we're only using 2 of them, so why not remove the ones that are not necessary? Because again, they take up resources, and you manage that in the config file. Developer certificate. Create a self-signed file that identifies you as an app developer to submit, to be able to submit to app stores. I think actually there's 2 names for this. There's App Store and then there's App Store. Apple owns one of them. I don't remember which one. And they took others to court about it. So there's one that's the generic, and there's the one that's the trademarked one. Probably the single word is the trademarked one, and the 2-word one is the generic one, I think. So the certificate, there's a special file that we use. I forgot one more item over here. Compile our app for release, not debug. We have been working in debug mode. We're going to turn it into release mode so that it can be downloaded by someone across the world off of the App Store. But in order to create the release version, we need to set it up that this is like the official version of our app from an official app developer that requires a certificate, and we'll work on that. And then when we have our final compiled version, then we go to the app stores. Create an account, create an app listing, publish the app, and then of course the final step right here, get rich. So once our app is available online, then we can charge for it, or give it away for free, or set ourselves up to put ads in the app and make money that way, or set ourselves up that DLC. So if you're in the world of video games, what's DLC? You mean a cash grab. Yes, that's what you meant, a cash grab. So that means, do you want to sell more features for your app? Your app comes with certain features. Oh, the map feature, so you can find the latest comic shop, that's just 99 cents. And then, oh, the extra feature where you can do XYZ, that's another 99 cents. This modern video game world of DLC. Yes, it stands for downloadable content, but that's where they make their money off of. You buy the game one time, but then you're paying for it over and over and over by buying the latest, map. Yeah, yeah, exactly. When I just finished defeating the Cyber Demon on Doom 1, and I want to go to the next level, but I gotta pay $9.99 in 1993. So that was tragic. So there's still going on nowadays that you have to pay to get more content. So the monetization part, that's the official term, monetization. That's then an aspect of that. So these are the big goals for the day. And we're taking our app to the phase of releasing it to the world. Now, for the final project, like I said, you're not going to be required to publish this app for real to the world, but you're going to need to do all of this other stuff. And in the App Store, you will get to a point where you're filling in a store listing about your app, and that's going to require a lecture about what are the requirements of your store listing, pricing it, advertising it. There's a bunch of things we'll get to. And you don't have to then click the final submit button to submit it to the App Store to be published to the world. You can get to step 5 of 6, and that'll be enough for the final assessment, which will include a study guide, but which will include that the app is fully functional, that it's customized. I don't want to see these ugly colors anymore. I've been looking at it long enough. You need to make sure you have your colors, your fonts, your verbiage, your graphics. I've been seeing these 2 Superwoman comics here for months. You're going to have to put your own graphics there if they're not there yet. And customization, that it's fully functional, that we have the App Store listing. That'll be also chances for customization. And plus other things on a study guide. And that will be the final assessment a week from today. These are the big ideas here. General questions before we get to it? Okay, so MVP, in our case, is decided by or is oftentimes decided by a group leader or a manager or someone that has a higher level on the hierarchy that the product is ready. Well, guess what? That's me. And so we're deciding our app is ready. Our app is ready to start publishing to the world. So I have decided we're MVP. You may not. You may say, well, what about this? What about doing the too many attempts to log in thing? Is that 100% required for our app to work? I wouldn't say 100%. Maybe I'd say 70% or 80 or whatever you want to define. What I mean is that we can, of course, still add more features. And on the one hand, because our deadline is one more week, we don't have time. But if you are doing this on your own system, and you have all the time in the world, then yeah, you can keep adding and adding and adding to add all of the features, quote, all of the features that you need to be ready to go to the world. But we're going to say we're ready at this point. So there's a check right there. Easy. Let's look through our app. Are there any kind of features or functionality of the app that you might have gone through, that you might have said, well, this is still maybe an issue, or loose ends and such? Any opinions, any thoughts?
I'm going to respond.
Yes.
The year accept a number more than 4 digits.
Does the year accept more than 4 digits?
Oh, it does at the moment.
It does at the moment.
It's actually easy to fix within HTML.
Okay. So if I put in the year 19,000, it'll take it? What's wrong with that? There is a year 19,000 eventually. But that might be something to look at, just out of curiosity. How would we might address that? You said in the HTML file?
It should be less than the current.
Less than the current year. Comics are interesting because they actually get published in the future. When you buy a comic book right now, the cover on it is actually telling you 3 months in advance, which is a holdover of the old publishing model. It's in the future. But just to kind of see that, you were saying maybe in the index.html file there's a fix for that? To put it within a range, maybe?
Subject matter is a time travel, so it's published in the future.
Yes.
All right, yeah, but seriously.
We could add a date range or less than a certain date. Is that kind of what you're saying for the inputs?
Number range.
Number range, sure. Let's see, view comic, save comic, save comic. So I'll put it here as a comment if people want to do this, but let's say we do here. So field set
It's an HTML.
in the HTML file, so we can copy that, make a note, date range. So if you want to do this, I'm doing this in the HTML file at about line 143, where we've got our input for the year. The year's right over, yeah, it's right there. Quick note, date, set up a date range. And that would 143.
143?
Yes. And it is an attribute. What's the attribute? Just range equals something or something?
It's like noun,
Max val or min val?
min and max. I'm just looking.
There's a couple of ways to do it. I think there is, min val, max val, and I
I
think
did min and max.
so. It's just min, one word, min val, value, or how is it?
Just min, M-I-N.
And then val,
No, M-I-N.
just min, and equal something
Put 1
equals 1. So comic from the year 1, okay.
and then
2020?
Well,
2021?
actually put 9999. So
Okay.
4.
Sure. So this could be if we wanted a range of minimum and maximum values of a number. Right now we've got that our year is any number, so we could put the number 12, right? The year 12. But if we set minimum and maximum, the minimum number a person could put into that field is the year 1, and the maximum of the year 9999. You know, you could do anything like 1930 to, 2021 if you wanted. So I'm going to put this as a comment. So I've got the explanation, and then as a comment, I want to do minimum to maximum values of that input field. Well, I'm commenting it out. It's not going to be a live field, so I'm going to leave it the same as the previous field. It's still the same name and ID, but I just have it there as a comment in case I want to do that in case I want to do that for real. This might replace the one that's already there, so I would leave the name and the ID the same to match with the label. Okay, I'm going to browse the folders in my Solution Explorer on the right side a little bit to see if there aren't any like stray files and things. This is going to be more about yourself. If you've worked with your own project rather than using mine, you might have put in extra folders, you might have put your PSD file in there. Again, I don't recommend to have anything in the solution besides what actually is necessary for the app, because in a moment when we compile it for release, it will take that PSD file, it will take those 7 fonts that you're not using and compress them all and make them part of your app. And it might bloat the app a little bit more than necessary. So for myself, looking in Solution Explorer, focused on the WW folder, I've got my index there. In my scripts, I've got these items. One little note here that we never really ever dealt with the platform overrides file, but the theory of that is I could have written JavaScript code in here that would only function per platform. So if I wanted certain JavaScript to run when it's on an iPhone, I would write it in there. And there's a certain way to do it. We would have to look it up in the documentation. I'm not going to delete it because I believe it's referenced in the HTML file. So if you remove the file itself, you'll have to remove it from the HTML file. And that will probably be something that you do want to use in the future to customize your app per platform. Map file is related to this JS file if you wanted to open up that JS file and read it in a human-readable way. So that goes there. CSS folder, we have the one font, the jQuery, the colors, our custom code. The images folder is the one full of the icons of jQuery mobile, plus that little loader spinner. That's fine in my case. Images, you can hover over these and it'll get a little preview. So I'm pretty sure using all, actually wait, I don't think I'm using the Cordova icon anywhere. That might be then a contender to remove. It's just not really part of anything in our app. That's left over from a while ago, I think, back when we had our very first template of the project. And technically it doesn't take up that much space, but I would delete it. Let me see, does it tell us how much space? Probably like 2 kilobytes. But this is the example of looking through the project and, oh, I remember putting that in there 7 weeks ago and doing nothing with it. So with that, I'm going to delete from the images folder Cordova.ping. I've customized it enough that it's got my content. So you can just right-click delete or delete on the keyboard. Confirm. That's the only place I would look. I don't know if you have been putting stuff for safekeeping elsewhere. You may need to do this step a little more in-depth later, but that was the general idea with this step here. Look over the app, give it the once-over, look at anything that's left over or shouldn't be there, or functionality-wise as you test it, that there is something catastrophic that we don't want to really release. A sort of example of that a while ago was when we had said, let's comment out the image placeholder, because at the moment it's just going to be a broken icon. That I will add eventually, and I don't want to remove the code, but I comment it out so that I can go back to display the image to have a placeholder for it. Oh, actually, there's one quick thing here. Let me just confirm the code here. The way this is working is when you're on the Save Comic screen and you do the barcode process on a real device, of course, you get the barcode scanner. And then it scans a barcode. And what it does is it puts that code into an input field. That input field is still editable. I can tap in there and mess with the barcode. What I want for the input field is to display the barcode, but not be editable, because that's what I scanned, and that's what I want to store in the database. So we can add an attribute to that field to prevent further editing. It's just a sort of a placeholder to show this is what we scanned. Let's add that. In the HTML file, line 156, we've got our placeholder, we've got our input field for barcode. I believe it's disabled equals true. Let me confirm in HTML input disabled. It's probably disabled equals true. It's just disabled. Okay, so just an attribute of disabled, that's what we want. So I guess similar to required. So let's add disabled so that the person cannot type into it, but they will still see, I scanned the barcode, it's in there, that's what I'm about to save to my database. Well, in our form, where we've got our barcode input field placeholder, line 156 or so, we've got input of type text, placeholder 123, in barcode, so as an attribute anywhere. We'll put it maybe right after the placeholder disabled. So that will disable that from people accidentally typing other stuff into it. I just want it to scan and store that in there to show this is what we scanned. Make a quick note on that. Disabled attribute to prevent user changing the barcode data. So line 156, just a quick note, I guess quote it maybe, disabled attribute does that. So just an attribute without any, it's an attribute property without any value. It's just, that's it, disabled. I'm going to save all. So I think we're ready to check that one off. Any other opinions on that one? Look over the app. Anything else about it? Okay, check. Config XML file. Make sure all screens there are correct. So let's open up the config XML file. Let's give that one a once-over. And just double-click config XML file from the solution. And this would be to browse the various screens. So we don't need to really do anything under the default screen of Toolset. We're using this version of Cordova. Fine. Next one, common. Here's the part definitely that for the grades, this will be important for the assessment. If you've been using my code, most likely that package name says Smith. Your name, your last name is not Smith. And when you publish this up to the App Store, even if you don't release it to the world, every app uploaded to the App Store, even if it's not public, needs a unique package name. So if you try to upload the result of what we're going to do today and it rejects it, most likely because you're using a package name that already exists. I've taught this class before. I've used that name before. So that one's going to get rejected. Here, under package name, put your last name. Easy. With your last name? There's no, how many Harringtons are there that make apps? Okay, then you can change that to, what about if you do like biz? Because remember, this is just a domain name, reverse domain name with the name of the app, a short name of the app here. What you could also do is if, Smith is taken, it could be like, CBD 01, just some way to make it unique compared to everyone else. It's the whole thing. Okay, so the name of the icon is right there. That's what appears on the screen. Another way, just to kind of test that you were doing this, that you know how to do this, I would also like you to put your last name in the name of the app there for our testing purposes, for our grading purposes. That, of course, can be changed at any time that you want. And then version number, I won't care what that is, but you probably want to change this to something that you want, like it's version 1.0. Today's date. So the last time this was edited was way back in the last decade, a long time ago, November 19th. So I'm going to change that. 0115, what are we at? 15? 14? This can be anything you want. However, naming scheme you want. It's version 1.1. Today's date. That's fine. The author of this app is probably not that. That's not you, probably. So fix that. Description, this has been there a while. If you want to keep that, you probably have enough experience in the app of what it does and so forth that you could create a better description than this. This is something that we put in a long time ago where we didn't really have a lot that the app was doing. Why not put in a better sentence over here about what it actually does? So don't write this, right? You're obviously, actually I will write nothing. You write something as a little description. If you didn't want your app to be locked into portrait, remember that's where you change that. I do want it portrait only, so I'm leaving it. It won't matter for the assessment what you put there. Everything else pretty much will. Your display name should be unique. Package name, author. Say that again. Okay, so that one, getting to the next parts over here, my app will not be full screen. It will still leave the top status bar and such. If you want to change that, you could. Doesn't matter. Okay, the URI is related to domain access. If your app is using online resources to make it more secure, I would list here that it can only access http.com/Twitter. I would link it, I would put a list of addresses of what our app can access. Our app doesn't really do anything on the internet. So we can just leave it as is or remove it. It doesn't access the internet, so
About link to Facebook and social media.
right now the app doesn't have any features to connect to anything online like social media. But if you did require that, then you would put in those. I believe you do add new URI, it'll do a list. Then you do facebook.com. So if your app is accessing these external domains, these external websites, you would put a list to make it more secure, because right now what it's saying is your app could access any domain, meaning it could somehow access a domain with, like, bad code or whatever. And maybe for more security, that you know that your app does go to the internet, you do put in, myserver.com, whatever your actual server is. Gonna leave it as is.
That's nothing in there except for that asterisk. Does that stop from any other access?
No, the asterisk is a wildcard which says it could access anything.
So if you wanted to access nothing,
Yep. Remove that.
that's a safe way to do it.
Yeah, but again, the app doesn't connect to the internet. So
Yeah, I just was wondering if all those forms in there, if someone could screw around.
yeah. Okay. Plugins. We'll go to installed. We do use the barcode scanner. Technically, we're not using the camera yet. That'll be for version 2. What we could do is remove the camera and then add it later, but we're going to do it on Thursday, so at the latest. So we'll leave it. As we debug our app, we want to look at the console. We're still going to work with our app, still debug it. I'm going to leave it. Eventually, perhaps when my app is ready to go to the real world, I might turn off the console to save a couple of bytes of data or such. Notifications, those are those Cordova pop-ups that we've had. We've used a couple of those, I think. Splash screen, we use a splash screen. Vibrate, I think we made it vibrate. And then the whitelist is related to that list of safe domains. It was there automatically for us. It's related to the one back on common. So these are the ones that I have. These are the ones that I'll leave, because we are going to add camera and the other ones, and we're still going to test it. So these are the ones I have. If you have more than that and they do something in your app, leave them. If they're going to do something, okay, when are you going to add that? If you're not going to get back to this app in 3 months, you might not want to release a version that has extra code that makes your app larger, but it's not doing anything. And you can at least easily remove any plugins through the remove button. We're not targeting the Windows App Store at the moment, so I'm not going to set up anything right there. And at the moment, we're not targeting the iOS, the Apple App Store just yet, so I'm leaving that. We're going to target the Android App Store at the moment. And this was set up a while ago, and it should be fine. Still, remember all of this. The current version of the code that I'm going to upload to the App Store is 1. Even if I upload it with a minor tweak, I will have to upload version 2. If I add an extensive new feature like camera, it's got to be version 3. So the first version of the code we will upload to the App Stores is 1. And the minimum Android version, maximum, and ideal, talked about that before. These are fine. Keep it running in the background. Yes, don't shut down the app unless they manually do it. The launch mode, I don't remember the details of what that is exactly, but the default is the default. I'll keep that. Do we show the title of the app on screen? Not really. We already have that in the design. And are we letting the browser, are we letting the app itself store stuff? That's part of local storage. So I didn't change anything here, but we will once we release version 2 to the App Store. Save all. Any questions on the config XML file? I've got a question for you. If you recall, somewhere we had a spot to also add the email of us, the developer, but I don't see it in any of these screens. Does anyone remember how to get to that? In the XML code, yes. So let's close the nice pretty interface of the config XML and instead right-click, view code. There's, I think, one, maybe two other little lines there that I'm not sure why they don't show it in the interface, in the designer. There's one or two things that you should also update for yourself.
Where is the code?
It's on line 2. Not line 2, sorry. Where is that at?
Line 5.
Line 5. There it is, line 5.
Actually, 7.
7?
Well, no, I had a description, so yeah.
Okay. So somewhere around there where we see author tag, author XML tag. Probably want to change that. That's not our website. Email, that's not my email. Yeah, close the one that's already open, the one with the interface one. Save it, then close it. Then right-click, and then view code. So change those. This will be the same as what I've got basically as my ID. The ID is on line 2 all the way at the end over here somewhere. There's the ID. So in my case, just because I'm doing something like this, mine is going to be smith.biz. Again, don't do this one. This is completely a test. And then your email. So those two lines there are not, or those two attributes are not found in the designer, in the visual view of the config XML. So you want to do it here in the code. Everything else is pretty much represented in the config XML, and there's all of that stuff about your icons, splash screens.
What is outer href? What do you change it to?
Well, like I have up here, you would change it to your own website.
Like your portfolio website?
Exactly. If you don't have one, you can make it up, as long as it's not the default Cordova website.
So they want your email to be from the same.
That's a good point. I don't think it needs to be from the same domain, but you shouldn't have it with the default Cordova email. Sure. Okay, so we'll do save all. Save all. Any questions on that? That's basically the config XML step. Makes sense. We're looking at this file that we don't deal with a lot, except like I said at the beginning of the project to set things up, and then at the end to just confirm everything is what we expect it to be. So I would check that off. Next item, creating the developer certificate. Okay, so we are going to create a file, a sort of a credential that identifies us as an app developer. And specifically, this file, this executable file, this app file, also has your credential embedded inside of it. So that then when you upload it to the App Store reads that, and then it says, okay, you're about to publish the official Twitter app, and you're the official Twitter development team. It's good. So we can do that ourselves. We'll do that right now. So full docs are over here. We'll take a little detour to this website, taco.visualstudio.com. Taco stands for Tools for Apache Cordova. So the Visual Studio screen that focuses on the Cordova stuff. And there is a little walkthrough that we will follow about how to create the developer certificate and how to use it. So the big idea is that we are going to use the Java software installed on our computers to be able to create a certain file. And that file has our credentials and it's encrypted. And then we use that file in Visual Studio to compile our release-ready version of the app. So let me break it down a little bit more. Let's say with Java, the Java software. With Java, create a something.keystore file. So there's going to be a special file that ends in .keystore. The Java software of your computer will let you create it, calling it whatever you want, such as your last name. And it ends in .keystore. It's a special encrypted file. So with Java, create this keystore file. We'll do that together. Then we will, in Visual Studio, reference your keystore file to be able to compile the app for release. Let's see, one more thing here, requires passwords, etc. You're going to create the special file that has your credentials, such as your name, your company. If you don't have a company, we'll make it up, no problem. Your name, your company, various passwords to make it, legit. This is, I'm an app developer, and this is my app, and I'm publishing it to the app stores. Here's my credentials.
The link takes me to some kind of Microsoft site.
It should. Let me follow my link here and see if it's in the right place. Did I misspell it? Taco.visualstudio. Let me just confirm. Yeah, it should be here. Learn about mobile development. Yeah, that's what we should see here. And then we'll see what else we do here in just a moment. So this is like the big, this is like the main portal for all of the information about how all of this works. And then we'll go to a specific screen, and I'll put that in the notes. But this is the idea of what we're about to do here. We're going to get the official documentation to be able to do this sub-step 1, to create this file. This file, I will note, it's encrypted, and it's designed to be like tamper-proof. So you're not going to really be able to open it in a regular code editor and make a change, such as, whoops, I misspelled my last name. When you make the file, it locks it down, and it's encrypted for, security and all of that. So this always happens every semester, and if it happens to you, that's okay, but I'm telling you right now, when we go through this process, and if you misspell it and such, and you misspell your name or whatever, the easiest thing will be to create another file. You really are not going to be able to go back and edit your outputted keystore file. So I'll make a note here. This file is not editable. Create as many as necessary. The downside, however, is that if you create a keystore file today and you publish it to the App Store today, and then a year later you want to do version 2 of your app, you're going to need that original keystore file to update at the App Store again. That key store file, then, you need a backup of it on your flash drive, on your home hard drive, on your online cloud storage, on an external hard drive saved at the bank, or whatever. You're going to need everywhere. You're going to need backups everywhere. Because, again, that file is very important for you to confirm with the app stores that this app is mine. And, you know, worst case scenario, you have to create another app store listing, another app store account, and there's going to be one version floating out there that you can never get rid of because you know, you can't remember your login credentials, or you can't provide your credentials for that app. So it's not editable. Now is the time, as we do it together, to understand how it works and to remember that. Set it up correctly. Remember your passwords. It's going to ask you for 2 different passwords. They can be the same. And I'll walk you through all of that. And if you make a mistake, that's okay. I'll probably just tell you do it over. But let's see what the documentation says. So here is a huge document with several chapters about how to do lots of stuff with Visual Studio to make apps with Cordova. On the left side, we have various chapters. All the while, we've been using jQuery Mobile as our main interface. But there are a variety of other ways to make interfaces. One of them is Ionic. So there's a whole tutorial there. If you ever are curious about how to make, you know, an app that has a sort of a different library and style of design, Ionic is another type of style. That's just informational. What we care about at the moment is scrolling down, there's a chapter on publishing. So right now what's open is Get Started. I'm going to go down here to Publishing, Publish to a Store. I'll put the link of this directly into the notes. This is ultimately where you want to go, but there's all of these other chapters and samples and tips and such that you can continue to learn, continue to read to then learn. And I will put, so the full doc is that one. See, that's why I gave you the easy one. And then the exact document for what we need right now is that one. So let me do a quick overview of what this says, then we'll do it. These are the instructions of how to compile your app to, if you are publishing to iPhone platform, Windows platform. We're going to focus on Android at the moment. It's reminding you to, you know, go through your config XML file. It's reminding you about what's version number and all of that. The certificate file. There's kind of different names for this. Key store file, certificate, private certificate, developer certificate. We're going to do this one in a moment. It's going to be, we're going to generate a certain file. Once we've got that file in our app in Visual Studio, we will need to tell Visual Studio we have a key store file that we want to use to make our release-ready version. And we have to then eventually tell Visual Studio, we're not in debug mode anymore, we're in release mode. And then note here, choose one of the Android emulators or physical device. This is what I said earlier, that if you want to fully test this, you need a physical device. This mentions emulator. We've never used emulators in this class. We have used what? Simulators. There is a difference. For all intents and purposes, it's a virtual version of a device. But we've been using the simulators, which use the web browser. Use the web browser to pretend to be a device. This is saying, for this final step, compile it to a real device or an emulator, which uses up more resources and creates like a real, and we don't even have them installed here, which creates like a real, quote, real instance of an Android device on your system. which uses way more RAM and hard drive space and processing power. So I don't have them installed here. You could if you want to. You can go download. It even looks like an iPhone. It looks like an Android phone. This is just a web browser that pretends to be one of those things. But with one of those emulators, it even looks like it's got the buttons on the side and you can press them. They're still not a replacement for a real device. But in order to do step 3 there, you need a real device or an emulator. After that, eventually, you will get a file called android-release.apk. So the executable, it's not an exe in the world of Android, it's an APK, an Android package. So once we do this, in a certain folder, we will have that executable file, which then we upload to the App Store. And that'll be the lecture in a moment. But if you want to look at this folder, all the while, it has been creating an APK for us, except that it's an unsigned debug version. If you want to take a quick look, this says when the build is complete, in your project's bin folder, Android folder, release folder. If you want to look at this, I'll look at it here. In my project folder, in my flash drive, in my project folder, in my project folder, in the bin folder. We'll do this again in a little bit. We're working with Android at the moment, in that folder. We've only been debugging so far. In the debug folder, I have here an actual executable Android file that's been here all along. But we obviously don't use this when we upload to the App Store. When we do a real release, we will have a new folder here, release. And in that release folder, we will have the name of our app. It'll just generically android-release.apk, which we can rename, of course. And then that file will be what we upload to the App Store. Before we get to that, I was just talking here in theory what we're about to do. And there's a whole process in iOS if you want to do that. The big problem with that is that you still need a Mac, however, for Visual Studio to communicate with the Mac so it can use the compiling software and kind of pass it back to Visual Studio. It's kind of a little bit of a hassle, that's why I don't focus on it a lot, but all of the official docs are here. And what we've got set up and ready to go is the Android portion of it. So that's the part we will do. Step 1 is done. Step 2, generate a private certificate.
So when you go in and set this up and submit it to the App Store for Android, is it pretty much accepted right away?
When we talk about the App Stores, yes. Short answer. Longer answer when we get to the App Stores. But yeah.
So, but then the Apple is going to do that.
No. Apple's the one that does take more of a fine-tooth comb over your app before accepting it. Android App Store, Google Play is a little bit more open, Wild West somewhat, and then Apple is a lot more locked down. So those are the two kind of ranges of things.
What do they do? They contact you, like send you saying that you can't do that?
Unfortunately, Apple is still kind of a black box. They do send you emails and such telling you that there's a problem with your app, but there's been plenty of developers, horror stories that I see that they don't get enough good feedback to say, what is it about my app? What do you want me to fix? And then they
So they just reject it.
sometimes, yeah, and they try and I say, never mind, I'm going to Android. But okay, let's try this part. So generate a private certificate. Then we'll take a break. This is basically we need to create a certain kind of file with our Java software. Oh, look at this. Step 1, open a Windows command prompt. This is something we're going to do in the command prompt, not with a pretty button that we press. It's not too complicated, but reading it over here, we're going to open the command prompt. We're going to navigate to a certain folder where the Java software is installed, and then we're going to run a command. We're going to run an app, a software called KeyTool, with a bunch of settings or parameters. So, step 1, open the command prompt. How do I do that?
CMD.
I type CMD. CMD? No, I'm typing CMD. What?
In the lower left corner.
Type here to search.
Start. Yes, CMD. There we go. Search for the software. Command prompt, CMD. How many of you have ever used the command prompt in any capacity? Ever? People. How many of you have used it within the past, 12 months? Okay. How many have used it in the past 1 month? Okay, good. Looks like it's still alive and kicking. So let's open the command prompt off of the start menu.
Well, this is a kind of like step 2. I missed it. We had to follow you and do something in step 1.
Nope, step 1 was simply that we have already looked at our config XML file.
Yeah. So
And now
it's
step
just-
2. And now step 2, we're about to do this part. So we're in the right place. Opening up the command prompt here, we need to go to our Java folder, which is probably in the program files folder. Some version, we probably don't have 180, we probably have 19 something. And then in the bin, the binaries. So let me walk you through that. What this is saying is, we don't have it like in the regular Windows Explorer where I can just click on folders and do stuff. In the command prompt, we have to change directories. So let's say I look at it just like this. I'm currently in the C drive, in the users folder, in the lab folder. Does yours say the same thing, or mine might be different? Are you in lab here? Same. Okay. CD space ... press enter. That makes you change directory to the previous directory, to the parent directory of the current directory. So now we're on the users folder. Need to do that one more time. CD space ... enter. The funny thing about the command prompt, if you're not used to it, you will never get praised, but you will always get scolded. If you write the command wrong, it'll definitely tell you. If you write the command right, you might not get any feedback, meaning it probably worked. So now it says that we're on the main root level of the C drive. I want to orient myself. I want to view the directory that I'm in. Anyone know how to view a directory? dir. Show me the directory. Show me what's in the current folder. Enter. Nothing happens, so you press enter. In my case, I have all of these folders here, files and stuff, and I should see program files. I want to change directory into the program files directory, aka folder. CD space, we should probably type it with quotes, right? Quote, program, tab. See that amazing trick there? I started to type program, I pressed tab, auto-completed, because that space matters. So any folders that have spaces in them, you probably should quote them. Folders that don't have spaces, you can just type them without quotes. We're going to change directory into program files. Press enter. So I'm on the C drive in the program files folder. You can press dir again, type dir again to get the directory listing what is in this folder. A lot of folders. And the one we care about is Java. CD into Java. Change directory into Java. CD Java.
JDK 1.8.0.
We need the JDK, not the JRE. So when I go into the Java folder, do one more dir, in the Java folder, okay, in the C drive, program files Java folder, I see JDK and JRE. Which one do I do? The documentation is telling me JDK. The documentation right here. Ultimately, here's what we're doing. Let's go to this folder. And this is saying JDK, the Java Development Kit folder, not the Java Runtime Environment. What's the difference? Don't worry about it. It's telling us go here. In the documentation, it's saying 1.8.011, 111, and we've got 211. So here's a shortcut. CD space JD tab finishes typing it for you. So tabbing auto-completes. You should type a J and a D so that it knows to auto-complete that. So don't just type a J because it won't quite know that one or that one. So CD into 211. JDK 1.8.0_211, enter. And one more, according to the documentation. What's the next folder? Bin, binaries. CD bin. Actual exe files to work with.
Java.exe.
Close. Documentation says we're using the key tool aspect of Java. We're not going to go into the Java console itself. We need the key tool software. So if you just type key tool one time, just to see this, key tool. This is ultimately keytool.exe. Right? If I dir in the list, we will see key tool, JK key tool. So if you type key tool, this is the part about if you do it right, you get no feedback. If you do it wrong, you get feedback. And key tool, it says key and certificate management tool. And here's the commands, because just typing key tool doesn't do it. You have to tell it a bunch of things. What's the name of my file? Who am I? Etc., etc. Or use key tool command help for commands. Well, this is what we're going to type here, which we can copy and paste. We'll do that in a moment. But as a little overview, we're going to run the key tool software. We're going to generate a key pair verbosely. We're going to create a key store file, and there's a part right here where we're going to put in our path to our whatever dot key store file. Right? A .txt is a text file, a .doc, a Word doc, a .keystore file is the special one that's got our certificate credentials. Then there's alias, which is something that you need to type uniquely. Key algorithm, key size, validity. So the two things that need to be changed here is where am I saving my file, and what's this alias? So what it's doing, if you want a metaphor, we're about to create a key store file, which is this keychain. And then I want to create a specific key on the keychain. That's the alias. So this keychain can open many things. There's my car, there's my yacht, there's my mansion. So it can open many things on this one keychain. This file, this key store file, can be used to open or unlock or work with a variety of apps. For us, we've got one app. We're one developer. We have this one project. So I'm going to create the keychain file, and then the specific key is the alias. And I would recommend we will make it really simple. We don't even have to put a full path. We can create this file in this folder and then move it. Or if you want to put, F / whatever to put it on your flash drive. What I'm going to say is, for the keystore file, just put your last name, .keystore, and for the alias will be, again, your last name. Just keep it very simple. So you can either start typing this, or I think we can copy and paste, right? Click that to copy. And on Windows 10, we can just paste, right? Right-click, or Control-V to paste. Or I guess right-click, paste. Right-click, simply right-click, just pastes. And then you have to go in and change the part. Now,
change second sample on the web page.
oh, you can. Yeah. You can change it here.
Yeah, because it's already like a.
This is regular editable text.
Yeah, second.
The second one.
Yeah, yes. It's easy to change.
Oh, this one. Okay, yes, that's what I see. Okay, so that one, yeah, this one tells you like where do you want to store it and what's your alias, Android key. Yeah, it's sort of the same. To me, it's the same thing. But that if that makes sense to people, yeah, that's fine.
More understandable.
It's more what?
More understandable.
Might be more understandable. Okay, so maybe we'll try the second one. So on the second one, I'm going to copy that. Press Escape to cancel that. Right-click. So right here with my mouse, I want to click over here, but I can't actually click there. You still have to use the arrow keys. So use the arrow keys on the keyboard to move the cursor to the right place. And the two places that you will need to change are where are you saving your key store file and what is the name of the specific key. Now this is going to cut it off probably. And I'll zoom in right now, but what I'm recommending here, you should be, if you want to put it on your flash drive and you know your flash drive's address, FG, I don't know what, you can kind of just do this. This might be the easiest thing at the moment. If you just tell it like this.
So you copied the second one and then
And then you just right-click and it'll paste it. And then we're making a change. We just one at a time. And then I'm changing the part that says, right after key store, what's the path? And then I'm about to change the alias as well. Yes, question?
So if we put it on a zip drive, and we have a different file location for that one at home.
It matters once we get back to Visual Studio and tell it, here's my key store file. So right now I'm creating it in this folder, but I'm going to move it to my flash drive.
I'm on the F drive here at home, I'm not on the F drive.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That won't matter until we get back to Visual Studio. In Visual Studio, we can visually tell it where is our key store file. Here we just need to create it and then put it somewhere. You could save yourself the effort here and do F:\\/ root of your flash drive. It's F?
Yeah, I mean, whatever.
Yeah, exactly, whatever yours is. Mine is F on these computers. So you could do it this way. This might be a little time saver here. I'm just saying this is going to need to be, this file will be created somewhere, and then we need to put it on our flash drive, on our Dropbox, somewhere, external drive. And then in Visual Studio, right after the break, we're going to use that file. And this is a long command here, so I can't fit everything at once, but the only things I changed were, where is the key store file? What's the name of the key store? Where is it being stored? Maybe just to keep it easy, F:\/ on my flash drive. Alias. Now, this is the stuff that I'm saying. If you don't remember what this alias was here, this is something that's going to be embedded in the file, which you will not be able to change with a code editor or anything else. So if you don't remember that, you called the individual key on the keychain something, I'm going to just tell you, create the key again, because there's really going to be no way to retrieve that. This name can be changed because it's the name of a file. That can be changed later. kittycat.keystore, fine. But later on, when we are compiling our app, it's going to ask you, what's your alias? I forgot. I made it 10 minutes ago. So I'm going to maybe take a photo of this or write it down to remind me that this is what I'm putting into this file. When I press enter at this point, then it will start the process to ask me a bunch of credentials.
can you increase it more first?
So at this point, I will press enter, and it'll step me through a very simple text-based wizard that will ask me a few things that I'll explain what they are in a moment.
We should press enter if we're ready.
Yeah. So it's asking for me to create a password to be able to use or get access to the keychain itself. You won't be able to get away with 1, 2, 3, 4. It's got to be at least 6 characters. Besides that, it can be anything. But this is asking for a password that is not too short. It'll ask you twice. You won't be able to see what you're typing, just like in the classic command prompts.
It's
Yeah.
got you confused, like, wait a
Ask
minute.
yourself, you made a mistake.
Yes, it'll ask you twice. So yes, but I forgot to say that. Yes, you won't see it progressing for ultimate security and annoyance. Just backspace 20 times if you didn't see what you were typing. Enter, and then I have to type it again. If I mistype it here, then the second time it'll tell you they don't match. Try again, and it'll start you again from the first one. So I will probably remember that. There we go. So this is to create the password for the .keystore file. Next, what is your first name and last name? If you don't pick anything, there are going to be defaults. You don't want to be the unknown programmer, right? So put in your name, unless that's your alias. Again, if I miss, there will be one moment before I finalize it that it will tell you, is this what you meant? And you will be able to go back and edit it. But once you confirm it and finish the KeyTool app, that file is locked. And then you'll have to create it again, and you can if there's some mistake inside of it. Name of your organizational unit. Very fancy way of like saying what's your job title. Anything you want here. App developer. Again, if you misspell that, you will have one chance to fix it. After that, you'll have to recreate the file. Enter on that. What's your organization? What's the name of your company? This can be real, this can be fake. Campos Apps, don't copy me. You don't have an app? That's fine. Just make it up. Leave it empty if you want. The cool thing about developing for Android is you are an app developer if you say so. We're creating our own certificate, we're making our own credential. To do something like this over for Apple, it's a lot more involved. And you have to provide a lot more credentials to create a credential. Here, I say I'm Campos Apps LLC, and I am, even though I didn't file that with City Hall or whatever. It is a lot more lenient.
We also do anything, thank you.
What's that?
You can be anything.
You can be anything you want here. Yeah, I made it up. That's not real, but it is according to my certificate. Maybe on that you will get a little email about, are you sure? But that won't even matter until you publish it to the App Store and then they scan it and such. What is the name of your city or locality? So whatever makes sense to you. Where is your business located? State or province. Two-letter country code. The US is the US. Other places you have to look them up. England is the UK. Mexico, I think, is MX, etc. So enter on that, and here it is. Is what you typed correct? Default is no. If you press enter, it'll assume you said no, and it'll have you do it all again. So read the prompt. So my name, case seems right, spelled it right. My organizational unit, app developer, spelled it right. Name of my organization looks good. Location, state, country looks all correct. Two-letter country code, yes. And then I have to type manually yes. It's going to assume no. So if I just press enter, the default was no. It'll then stop. To do it again, looks correct, so I'll type yes, press enter. It'll think about it, it'll see it's generating the file, etc., etc. Enter a key password for Smith. It should be a little bit more obvious saying that this is the second password for the alias. So I said there's a password just to get access to the keychain, and there's a password to get access to the certain key. Return if same as your previous password, which will be fine For super security, you have one password just for the file and one password for the actual key. I personally think that's too much, so I'm going to leave the same password for both and press enter. Okay, so storing my key store file on my flash drive or wherever, good. I just saw this warning recently when I checked this before the lecture a couple of days ago. I'm not sure about this, but it's just a warning. An error obviously is an error and it crashes it all. So a warning, for the moment, I got to research what's this about. So we recommend migrating to PKS12 industry standard. Okay, so I got to look up what that's about. But as long as you didn't get an error, as long as it didn't give you some sort of weird message that it didn't work or need permission or disk is full or something, it should have worked. And to fully confirm that, you can go back to your regular Explorer window and go to the folder where you expect that to have happened, like my flash drive. And on my flash drive, I've got my key store. On my F drive, I've got my key store. If when you were doing this and you had set it to just be like this, if you had done it like this without setting a path to a flash drive, this would have created the key store in the bin folder of the JDK folder, in the Java folder, in the program files, on the C drive. So I think good time for a break. If you got an error, we'll fix it. If you didn't get it working, we'll fix it. If you got it working, you've got a flash. If you've got it on your flash drive, great. If not, we'll figure it out. It's 7:30, we'll be back at 7:40. Then we'll use this file because this is about to be a check mark on the next one over here, creating a developer certificate. It's about 7:30, we'll be back in 10 minutes. Be there one moment.